tips some wisdom, and stay a while. This is the Prosperity Lounge, where growth gets personal.
Good evening. This is the Prosperity Lounge with Joey Ruffalo. What do leadership, legacy, and branding have in common with a WWE Hall of Famer turned mayor? Well, today on the Prosperity Lounge, we're joined by Mayor Glenn Jacobs of Knox County, WWE legend and Hall of Famer, Kane. You'll hear powerful lessons on leadership, legacy, and building trust. I'm Joey Ruffalo. You're listening to the Prosperity Lounge, where hope meets freedom and where growth gets personal. This is part of our ongoing Leadership Knox County Conversation series. So whether you lead a business, a family, or just want to lead yourself better, this episode's for you. Joining us at the top of the show is someone whose leadership has spanned stadiums and City Hall. Mayor Glenn Jacobs, let's pull up a chair and dive in, get you on camera. Sweet. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining the Prosperity Lounge.
Thanks for having me, Joey. I very much appreciate it.
All right, let's get going here. I'm looking forward to this episode for a while, and had the opportunity to meet quite a bit over the last few years, and running joke around Knoxville, and I let you in on it recently, was on Mr. Everywhere. You see me. Only second to you, I think. We had the opportunity to listen to a couple of speeches recently, a couple of talks with the young professionals of the Farragut Chamber and that Farragut Rotary. Two very different topics you talked about, which was great. It gave me more material to work with. Appreciate that. You had said, I want to get into some topics about leadership right off the bat here, and you had said things about leadership isn't about standing behind your team, it's about standing in front. So I love that, because a lot of people nowadays have been taking this approach of we have to lead from behind. And you're talking about leading from the front. What does that look like today for you?
Well, first of all, thank you for what you do. I met you and your wife. It's been about a year or so.
A couple years, probably.
Yeah, we had y'all won a lunch with the mayor contest.
That's right.
And it was really cool because, your all's personal story and the fact that you wanted to be more involved in the community, and you're doing that, like you said, you're Mr. Everywhere. But I just find that really cool, because a lot of folks talk about doing stuff, and you're actually out there doing it. And I think that's really cool, and I applaud you all for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
By definition, leaders have to be out front. I mean, that's it's we say you're a leader. Well, what are you doing? Well, and you can't lead from behind. There are different styles of leadership. I think that there's only one effective style, but nevertheless, a lot of folks, when they think of a leader, they think kind of the person that's behind, driving people forward.
Cattle driver kind of guy, whipping the whip.
Exactly. Okay. That's not leadership. It's just not. A leader is someone who sets a vision and then persuades people to go along. I don't even like saying leaders and followers, because people don't just blindly follow anyone. They're not sheep. They make the decision whether they're going to essentially go along, buy into a vision or not, invest with the person that's promulgating or talking about these things. So to me, being behind people, yelling at them, that kind of dictatorial style, it's just completely worthless. To me, a leader is someone who's out in front, who is basically saying, hey, let's get this done, come along with me. And the most effective style, in fact, the only style that I think works, is servant leadership. And what that means is you are a servant to the people that you lead. One of the greatest examples of this was Jesus Christ washing his disciples' feet, and basically saying, that's what he said. If you want to lead people, you have to serve people. And I very strongly believe that.
And if you think about that from just a visual analogy point of view, when you're talking about leading from the front or behind, if somebody's from behind, cattle driving you, whipping you, kind of to push you forward, what you end up doing a lot of times is either you're looking back to see what's going on, you're taking your eyes off the road,
right? That's right.
And
right.
Your direction of where your company or where your vision is going is going to be off the rails.
Right.
But if you're in front and I can see what you're doing, and I see that that's something that I want to participate with and be along with, then sometimes those steps get a little quicker because I want to catch up to what you're doing and be a part of that.
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. And then also, the leader has to be the person who's willing to take the arrows. You have to be the person who's out there willing, to take whatever happens. It has to happen to you first. I mean, that's just how it is. And the negative things, which sometimes comes along with being in that position, that's really, I think, why leadership is so difficult. In many ways, it's difficult, and why they say it's lonely at the top. And the reason is because you have to be the person out ahead, in some cases alone, pulling people with you, but you have to be the person that's willing to take the shots. Like in public service, no matter what I do, a certain percentage of people are going to disagree with me. And I have to be the person that's out there willing to, put myself out and say, well, okay, this is what it is. This is the way we're going. And the folks that don't like it, you can yell at me about it. Please don't yell at my folks about it because I'm the one that's making these decisions.
Right.
But I think you're exactly right too. And that's a great way of putting it. Where is the focal point? Is it the team looking ahead or is it your team looking behind? And you always want them looking ahead.
I'm always, when you talk about that, was thinking about a scene from Braveheart where the king on the other side is just kind of setting out his troops, and William Wallace is in the front yelling and screaming, "It's our freedom!" And he's the first horse out, and people are running behind him. And there's that difference between leadership style.
Yeah, exactly. There's another one in the movie 300.
Okay.
When King Leonidas meets the Persian Emperor Xerxes. And Xerxes, is like, I would kill any of my men to achieve victory. And Leonidas is like, I would die for any of mine. That's the difference.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So most people, before you became mayor, knew you for WWE, now a WWE Hall of Famer. It's amazing.
No, thank you.
It's awesome. Your time in that organization, your time traveling, your time in front of the camera and behind the scenes, what did you learn from your time there to shape your leadership now as mayor?
Yeah, so one thing is, no matter what your role is, you're always you can always be a leader, even if you're not in a position of leadership. And you'll see this in locker rooms. Like every team that I was a part of, you just had people that emerged organically. Now you might have the coach, like, this is going to be the team captain. Sometimes it works, but if the team didn't like that person being team captain, it didn't work. It had to emerge, it just had to kind of organically come about, and you'll see that. You'll just see the people that, for whatever reason, kind of ascend into the leadership position, even though they're not in positions of leadership, if that makes sense. I think that all of us are actually leaders, whether it's your company, your family, church, whatever, all of us can be leaders in some way. So it's not your position that determines your leadership. It's how you treat people that really determines whether people are going to give any credence to what you say, right? Sure. So that's one thing. And also for me, and I think the reason that I was able to stay in WWE so long and be successful there was I never worried so much about me as I did the organization. Nowadays, a lot of folks think, for instance, that you're entitled to a job.
Right.
Well, if I'm an employer, it's not about what I can do for you. It's about the value you bring to my organization.
Sure.
That's really what it's all about. As a leader, that becomes even more so. It's not about Glenn Jacobs. It's about Knox County. It's not about whatever, if you're in charge of an organization or just belong to an organization, it's actually the health of the organization that the leaders should be concerned with, and the individuals within that organization. We often forget that if you have a company, whatever, it's made up of people. It's not just, XYZ company, or it's not just Knox County. It's the people that comprise Knox County government. It's the people that comprise your company. That's what you're actually leading, and we shouldn't forget that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll get to the next point, but
Yeah.
that's what to me is what makes a great leader is they actually care about the people that they're working with. As mayor, my job is really to ensure that the people that do the work of Knox County government have the tools of vision and the tools and everything that they need to get that work done.
You had also said that backstage politics in WWE was more intense than government.
It could be, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, because, seriously, you've got a bunch of, in many cases, international superstars. Everyone has an ego. How, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just what it is. How do you navigate through that? How do you get along with everybody? How, in my case, how can you sometimes keep people on the same page and realizing it is about the company. It's not about their own thing, and realizing, hey, when the company makes money, we all make money. But if you're going to go rogue because you don't feel that you're being treated fairly or whatever, which is going to hurt the company, it means we all lose money,
Right.
So yeah, that could be pretty difficult at times.
That probably set you up for learning how to be more of an effective leader, navigating those tough times behind stage. Or those tough times, just those intense moments where there's a clash of personalities. How do we mitigate that and mediate?
Exactly. Or just sometimes different perspectives. And you have to respect everyone's point of view at the same time. It's like, this is the way we need to go.
Yeah.
So how do you do that without hurting somebody's feelings to the point that you can't work with them anymore? Same in politics, in government. Sometimes, I don't know how people say, why don't you just do this and put the hammer down on so-and-so? It's like, because I'm going to need so-and-so in the future, And so, no, that's not only is that just not the way to treat people, but also it's not looking out for the long term, and understanding that we're all going to have to, even when we disagree on this issue, we all have to get along, and I'm going to need you on the next thing that we do.
Yeah, I had a cadet on recently. It was Adeline Walker. She's now the youngest regimental commander at Virginia Tech.
Oh, wow.
We talked about leadership, and she's doing it this semester where she's in charge, and talked about the leadership aspect of she reports to a 2-star general.
Wow.
And the general has the long-term vision, and then they only tell her a little bit, and then she has to tell the troops a little bit less and a little bit less.
Right.
So trying to convey what the long-term vision is without losing them along that process. And I imagine in your previous career, and even now too, looking at the long-term vision of the company, long-term vision of the county, you're the one in charge now. You're the, for lack of a better terminology, you're the Vince McMahon of Knox County. But you had that, he was that visionary there at the company where you might be like, I don't like the way my creative control is going, I don't like my character's going with this and that. But he's telling, hey, trust me, I got a goal here.
Right.
We don't know what that is, but we know where we're going. Just stay along that process.
Right.
Learning from that, has that helped you in your role as mayor, being able to convey this messaging?
Yeah, it has, and I think one point that you bring up is my job is I have to see the big picture, and there's a lot of folks that have their piece of things, and you'll get kind of tunnel vision because that's all you see. I want this to happen. Okay, the problem is you have this bigger picture that we can't expend all those resources on this because it takes away resources we need in other places.
Sure.
And I know, like, my senior directors probably get a little frustrated sometimes because, they have a vision of where they want to take their department, which I'm great. I buy into that, and I appreciate that. But then also, it's like, what about everybody else, and what about just everything overall? And yeah, that's my job, is to see the big picture, and it's the same with our commission. Commissioners are going to be, and they should be, their job is to be concerned about their district. Well, I have the entire county as my district, so if we do something over here, means that, something may be important over here that we can't do because of that, because we expend these resources here, things like that, So it does become very difficult because you have the big picture, and you're dealing with folks that are often very passionate about a particular slice of that pie,
Sure.
but I'm the person that has to look after the whole pie.
Two more wrestling questions, I promise.
That's all right.
I recently came across a clip of, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, and they were talking and they were doing me one-word answers about different people in the business.
Oh, no.
When they came to you, they said consistent. When they mentioned that, I thought of asking you the question of, is that something that you worked for, or is that something that you learned along the way, or is that something you pride yourself in, just being a consistent person?
Yeah.
Consistency could be good or bad either way, right?
No. I think in this case, it's, it's showing up and just doing the best job that you can.
Yeah. You know what you're going to get from somebody.
Exactly.
because
This is what you're going to get no matter what the circumstances are. That also makes you dependable, which is a very good thing, especially in WWE. Like I said, when you have, sometimes you have egos that
Sure.
are just going to do their own thing because, with me, you always knew what you're going to get. So, yeah, I would consider that a big compliment. I would tell, especially young people out there, one of the biggest issues is just showing up, showing up, doing the job, and then showing up the next day and doing the job again.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. A lot of times it's not the most talented person that ends up kind of coming out on top. It's just the person that shows up and does the work day after day after day. And you end up winning the war of attrition, because everybody else kind of falls off, and there you are left as the person that's consistent, but you're doing the best job.
And then being consistent in your work allows your boss to give you more responsibility,
Yes.
more control on it. And I look back at your career a bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to attribute this to you. If it's not you, you can take it if you like it. I think you had said 25 years to be an overnight success.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I thought that was you. So perfect. Looking back at the early days of your development in the profession, you were a dentist.
Yeah.
At one time.
Yes.
That's how I remember you.
I had some terrible characters. Yes.
It was around that time where everybody had a different character about a different profession. There was the garbage man. There was this. There was that.
Right.
You were the dentist. Then you were Diesel for a bit, and then they gave you the Kane character. When you have that and they trust you with that type of character they want to build, that consistency, I guess, is a big part.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what kind of role did you have in developing, not necessarily the character may see from the beginning, but what kind of leeway did they give you to kind of cultivate and make that character your own and bring your own personality into it?
Those are great questions. Yes, it's the consistency of showing, even though I hated the dentist character. But I showed up to work and I did my best,
right.
and they eventually, they understood this isn't Glenn. It's not a great deal, but the issue is never me or my work ethic. The issue is I just had gotten, put in a not great role. Right. Mm-hmm. So then sometimes that's what it takes. You prove that you're going to do whatever.
It's the response to that situation.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then eventually you get the break, but you never get the break if you don't prove that you're actually willing to put the work in. As far as the character development, basically the broad strokes of the character were outlined, and that I got to fill in a lot of the stuff. As my career went along, though, that became more and more to where I was able to create a lot of stuff on my own. We have a writing team, and they do a lot of the things. But as far as the nuances and all that stuff, and also some creative control, being able to say, I like this, I don't really like that. As my career went further and further, I got more and more of that. Again, it's just that consistency and proving that we trust Glenn. He's not a mess up. He's going to do what needs to be done. That's just something that you gain. That's I guess kind of the sweat equity that you get in the wrestling business.
And that hair was yours? The hair
was mine until we took the mask off. Yeah, I used to have really good hair. Unfortunately, I don't have much hair anymore.
I always wondered that. Okay. So I want to switch gears a bit and talk about your time in office. One of the themes of the show is legacy, how you leave your mark, what you do at your dash, whether that's with your family, your community, how you'll be remembered. You've had more than one career that people dream about. What does legacy mean to you now?
For me, as far as with Knox County Mayor, and this is something I do think about because I'm out of office in a little over a year. I mean, just like a year and a week or something like that. I just want to leave the county in the best position that I can for when the next mayor comes along at this point. There's some things that I would still like to accomplish, but those ultimately that's it, is just saying, hey, that was my goal when I came into office, is basically, I inherited a good situation. I didn't want to break it, first and foremost, and hopefully I've made it better in whatever way. Now again, you're always going to have different perspectives, and some people are like, well, this should have happened, this should have happened. Yeah, okay, that's fine on your perspective. At the same time, the stuff that I said that I was going to do as far as not raising taxes and things like that, I have done those. So, hopefully the county's just in a good place, and that's all I want.
I love that. You talked about your daughters and your wife, and how has family shaped your leadership lens?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am incredibly blessed because I have a wonderful family. When I met my wife, Crystal, she was going to ETSU while working 2 jobs and raising 2 kids. It's just incredibly hardworking individual. My daughters are both nurses with advanced degrees. One is a nurse practitioner. The other one has an MBA in healthcare administration and runs a home health service. So for me, I think, it's just, I don't know if it's necessarily like leadership per se, but it's knowing that when you're surrounded by good people, good things happen. I was gone a lot when my kids were growing up. My wife was, again, she was a single mom, so she was used to that, but greatest blessing is to have kids that are good kids, which we have, and that's due a lot to Crystal and and all that. So I think too, one of the most important things about leadership is that your team trusts you, that you're going to do the right thing. And I always say that's like a bank account. You get more influence and become a more powerful leader, the more people trust you, and you keep on getting to deposit that in your bank account. Well, the problem is that if you ever do anything to betray that trust, you never get back to where you were. And that's especially true of family. Again, it's just the way you treat people. And family, actually, you have, as mayor, I'm here for 8 years, and then I'll be gone. But with my family, I'm there for however long we all live, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to talk about trust and really investing in people. That's what family is.
Now, one of the things you talked about, legacy in the county and things you want to leave behind. One of the initiatives that you are bringing up in your last year or so here is Operation Heroes Hill. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why that project is so important to you personally?
Yeah, we're super excited about Operation Heroes Hill. It will create a village of 20 tiny homes for homeless vets, for people that are having trouble, veterans that are having trouble finding housing, as well as a community center and in supportive services and those sort of things. This has been done in other places around the country where they have a tiny home village for homeless vets. The big difference that we're doing is we're also incorporating the construction trades into this. Knox County High School students who are studying the construction trades are actually building the homes.
That's awesome.
It's great, man. You have mentorship from industry partners. The cool thing is, imagine being one of these kids, and you've helped build this thing, and then you get to drive by Heroes Hill the rest of your life and think to yourself, wow, I helped build that. So we're really, really excited about it. People can visit operationheroeshill.com for more information and to see how they can help. But we're super excited about it.
That's awesome. Put me down for however I can help and promote it here. I'd love to get it out there and talk to everybody. It's kind of personal for me too. My dad was a vet, disabled vet, not homeless, but I always say, take care of your own house first, or you're worse than a non-believer kind of situation.
Right.
And it's those things where we have vets that are just struggling, and giving them a place to stay, giving them some decency, giving them some I can't even think of the word right now, but giving them some sense of just pride in themselves so they can do something, and we treat them with respect, because
Exactly. Yeah.
they laid down their lives for us, and least we can do is give them a roof over their head.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And I think also too, the great thing about the high school kids you're talking about, they have that sense of pride, but they're also getting an opportunity to work alongside some big construction guys and people in the trades to make these connections at a high school age. So that's a great opportunity for these kids as well.
It is. One of the biggest issues that every company faces is workforce.
Oh, yeah.
And so these young people now will actually be able to work with some of these folks, and there are tremendous opportunities in the trades. I mean, there just are. For every 5 skilled tradesmen leaving the workforce, there's only one person there that can take that job. So tremendous opportunity, and your plumber's not going to get replaced by AI. Okay,
right?
So or offshore or anything like that. So they're also pretty stable careers. And again, that's just when you look at, say, the price of housing and other things. Part of the reason for that is because of the workforce issues that we're experiencing all across the country. So for the kids that are building the homes, but also the industry partners who then get to make those connections and maybe start forming a pipeline to help some of those workforce issues, it's a win for everybody.
It's a little scary. I just read something this morning about a fighter jet who had a 40-minute conversation with AI to fix some sort of mechanical issues. And
right?
Hey, AI, there you go, find the jets, man.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's this missing middle in the workforce now. You have a lot of older tradespeople that are up there that are they're still working because they don't have a middle workforce between the 25 to 45-year-old workforce. So they're working longer than they want to, which is causing them to delay retirement. But it's also causing a lot of people have health issues and back issues and joint issues, and they're still working. But the young people coming out of the schools are blame it on COVID, blame it on sitting around, blame it on whatever you want to blame it on, the economy or whatever. But this just drive to be in those spaces is just not. I think it's not a drive.
And I think too, a lot of young folks just haven't been exposed or haven't experienced. They don't know what an electrician does or a carpenter does. So if you actually get to do it hands on, it's like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. When I was in school, it was the kids that weren't the misbehaved kids took shop. Right. And now, man, I wish I took shop.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, an electrician or again a plumber or a diesel mechanic. Boy, you come out of trade school, you're a diesel mechanic, you're making 6 figures, man.
Absolutely,
with no student debt.
Right. So removing that stigmata from that trades school, and then having them be able to apply things like 529s and school loans and the tenancy promise and things like that towards these trades. It gives a greater access to people who didn't have that before to then fill these gaps in their workforce.
And one of the things I always think about is, if you're if you're someone coming from an at-risk community or another underserved community, and you get into the trades, plumber, electrician, or whatever, and then you have some business acumen and you start your own shop, but then you do it in your community, and now all of a sudden you're creating jobs and opportunities for other people. I think that's how you change entire communities, actually.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Because then you become an employer.
Yep.
I love that. Okay, so 2 quick last questions here. Looking ahead, what would you want your tenure as mayor to be remembered for?
Hopefully I'm remembered as being effective at what we did. And again, coming out of this, we say the Knox County truly is the best place to live, to work, and to raise a family.
They brought us here. I don't think I'm going to break any news here or get a scoop of anything, but although if you do decide anything, hopefully you'll come back and share it with us.
All right.
But you mentioned that sometimes jobs are there that look like the next logical step, but ultimately you feel like it might not be the right situation or the right time. What advice would you give to others in that same situation, maybe looking at a promotion or a change in company?
2 things. I'm a big proponent of Steve Harvey's idea of jumping. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Steve.
Yeah, but basically, Steve Harvey wrote a book about it, and all of us have certain gifts, God-given gifts. You may never know what your gift is until you take a chance to step outside of your comfort zone. And he'll talk about how it's like in a parachute. That's why he calls it jump. Your gift's in a parachute's not going to open until you actually jump and make it open. And along the way, you're going to get a lot of scrapes and bumps. But I would tell people to not be afraid to go for it. Not be afraid of failure. I mean, I have failed at so many things in my life, and that's caused me to grow as a person. And I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't failed at things. Right, because those failures actually set me up for success later. So obviously you have to make sure you can take care of things, feed your family, and all that. But at the same time, I would encourage people just to go for it. Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid of failure. Also, look to the long term. A lot of times you think, "Oh, this is a great deal." Well, is it a good deal right now, or is it a good deal for the rest of your life? Like for young people, we're having issues with young people. They're going, say straight into retail, which is great. Okay, and you're making $20 an hour. Sounds great. Well, the problem is if you don't have some sort of training or skill beyond that, when you're 30 years old with a family, $20 an hour does not go as far as it did. When you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to come straight out and just get in, just do this and it's going to pay the bills for right now. Think about what it looks like over the long term, and how you can position yourself to obviously get through the short term, but then also thrive in the long term.
Got it. Cool. And then regardless of what you're going to decide to do, we got people in the chat here, they're asking a lot of questions about it. Do you plan to stay active and involved and while waiting for that right move, or you just kind of take it easy for a bit and breathe?
Yeah, no, for me, I think I'll be forced to be active and involved no matter what I do. That's just kind of the, where I am now. There's a lot of stuff that one can do outside of politics and government to, remain part of the community and feel like you're contributing and are contributing to a good thing. So I don't know. It's, it's funny because it's just, I do still have a year left in office.
Sure.
And when people ask me, what I'm going to do next, the most important thing is that I do the best job that I can for the next year, because if I don't do that, there may not be a next, right? So that's really what I'm concentrating on is just being the best mayor of Knox County, Tennessee that I can for the next year.
Perfect. And I have one last personal question. I keep saying one last question.
That's
apologize.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a personal one. It also comes in the chat here too. Campbell Station interchange, 40 and 75.
Yeah.
People are asking about it. I'm curious about it. It's my exit, Campbell Station.
Yeah.
I think it's on TDOT's plan to kind of get this stuff going and fixed. We're
is.
getting hyper local here, folks. I apologize,
okay.
but
yeah.
So any kind of updates you can share with us?
No, we haven't heard anything. I just wrote a letter to TDOT today asking them, for a timetable on their plans about I-40. They've undergone some leadership changes. Commissioner Ely left. They have a new commissioner in. I don't know how much that's impacted, kind of the day-to-day operations. The plan is they're looking at that I-40 corridor comprehensively, and things like improving the interchange at Campbell Station Road, at Watt Road, going to weigh in motion weigh stations as opposed to having the trucks have to decelerate, get off, accelerate again. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We just don't know the timetable at this point. And hopefully I'll be able to report back in a couple weeks and say they got back with us and and gave us something concrete. But I wish I could say this is going to happen right now or when it is going to happen, but I'm just not sure at this point.
Perfect. And Truth Between Lines says, go on Gutfeld more.
Thanks, man.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break here. If today's conversation is sparking something in you, visit theprosperitylounge.com. You can grab our free 8-step guide to stop living paycheck to paycheck, or try our prosperity planner tool free for 30 days. It's a great budgeting tool we talked about AI before. There's AI Joey in there. You can ask me a question and it'll give you an AI Joey answer.
Joey.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy clone. So whether you're leading in business or life, we got your resources to help you grow. We'll be right back after this short break. This is the Prosperity Lounge.